How's it going, people? Hope you are well. Welcome back to the show. Got some technical problems today. I don't know what's happening with my computer, which is why I'm a little bit late. But I hope you're all good. I hope you're all well, and I hope you can all hear me. It says I've got Wi-Fi issues, so if I do come in and out of the stream, then I can only apologise. I hope you're well. I hope you're all good. Bit of an early one today for obvious reasons. Tonight it's going to be a late one for me because I'm going to go and do the watch along with AFTV. So I've got to get some sleep after this and then make sure that I'm going to be awake for 3:30 kickoff. Arsenal Barcelona. We're going to touch on that a little bit soon. But today we're going to be talking about the crisis of this striker situation. If you can call it a crisis. I think it's a cause for concern, if I'm honest with you, but I'm not going to sit there and start saying that Arsenal have got a striker crisis. Some people are getting extreme about it. Some people are not too bothered by it. So we're going to be talking about Eddie Nketiah. We're going to be talking about Balogun, Rice loving life at the Arsenal. I think it's good to mention some of the players that he's been pinpointing that's helped him as he's coming at early days. He did an interview today with Sky Sports News. We're going to talk a little bit about the future of Tierney as well, and of course look at some of the outs that we expect to be happening over the coming weeks, because to me we're going to have to get it right, because getting those outgoings is going to be so key to who comes in my opinion. So let's start with the striker situation at Arsenal. I wanted to talk about this today because there's been a lot of people in the last week or so that have been having debates on other channels about if Arsenal need a centre forward or not. So I want to ask you guys in the chat: do Arsenal need another goal scorer? Do Arsenal need another striker, centre forward? Or do we need another forward of some other kind? It's a really good question to ask because there's a lot of people that have got different opinions on this one. So I'll give you mine. I want to start by saying that I think Gabriel Jesus is a fantastic footballer. I think he is so pivotal for us. I think he's a fantastic player. And people are asking me, who do you see as the most improved player? Who do you think will look back at the end of this coming season and go, yeah, he's the one that really has upped his game? And I've gone for Gabriel Jesus purely for the fact that he had injuries last season. And if it wasn't for those, I think we would have seen a really exceptional Gabriel Jesus. He looked to me as if he was on fire. And then, of course, the World Cup injury killed his season really in that period, and then he had the last couple of months to come and prove himself. And some would say that he did. He scored some unbelievably good goals. He also wasted some chances, and there were some games towards maybe the back end of the season where I thought, are we getting the same all-round play that we saw from Gabriel Jesus early on? And some would say no. I will go on record to say that I did at the time say that Trossard should have stayed in the side, getting player of the month. I think he got 3 assists in the first half against Fulham away. Player of the month. And we didn't really see him again, really. Certainly didn't see him much in that role. He came on a couple of times and did some good bits and scored some goals and created. But actually, I don't really feel like he was treated too fairly, if I'm honest, in the last 2 months of the season. Superb bit of business from Mikel Arteta and Arsenal. Trossard was, and he is a player that can back up Jesus, like we've seen. Then, of course, we've got Eddie Nketiah, and we still have Florian Balogun. Now, I want to talk about both of those first. I want to talk about what happens if Gabriel Jesus gets injured. And people think that's quite a negative thing to do, but unfortunately in football, you have to do that. You need backup, because Arsenal's first 11, I'd go on record to say, is probably the second best in the league behind Man City's. There are some positions where I feel Manchester City are better than Arsenal. And I think in the first 11, there are some positions that Arsenal are better than Manchester City. If we was to do like a combined 11, I'd probably put 6 City and maybe 5 Arsenal in there. It'd be quite close for me. But actually, when you look at the backups, it's a huge drop off. And that's what needs to change. So there's no denying that there's a huge drop off between Eddie Nketiah and Gabriel Jesus. Now, some people might sit there and say, well, the goals scored last season, Eddie Nketiah did his job. Trossard did his job in terms of creativity and scoring. But actually, when you look at the all-round play, I still think there's a drop-off between Gabriel Jesus and the players that coming in behind him. So let's talk about Eddie Nketiah. Eddie Nketiah is a player who brings a lot of energy for me. He's a player that at 23, I think he is now, 22, 23, he needs to be playing. He needs to be playing first-team football, in my opinion. And I don't think that's going to be at Arsenal. There's a lot of rumours and a lot of murmurings that Eddie Nketiah is the guy that wants more minutes at Arsenal. He's had more than enough chances at Arsenal, in my opinion. He's been given a lot of game time, and I don't think he's always delivered. I wouldn't go as far to say that he's been a shambles, his career. I think a lot of people are very harsh on Eddie. And I do think that giving him the number 14 shirt and the 100K a week put a lot of pressure on his shoulders, which I think sometimes it's good for players to have that pressure, but other times it's not so much. And I don't think that Eddie's lived up to the hypes of that new contract personally. Now, he's only had that one season, but also he's also got an opportunity in the last few seasons where I feel that even under Emery and Wenger, when he was being used, and now, of course, Mikel Arteta, we've seen enough of Eddie Nketiah to know, in my opinion, that he isn't a first-team starter. He went to Leeds and he couldn't get ahead of Patrick Bamford because of the way that Bielsa wanted to play. So he never really had a successful loan move there. And when he came back, he was thrown into the deep end in certain games. And when given the opportunity in League Cups and in Europa Leagues, to be fair to him, he scored some goals. I don't think Eddie Nketiah is that guy, though. I don't think this season, if we're going for a title, we want to be bringing on Eddie Nketiah with 20 minutes to go. So that's my opinions on him. I've mentioned Trossard, and I stand by the fact that I think he can play across the front three. If he was to give me where I think his best position is, it's probably either coming off the left or going into a attacking midfield role, and he can play in that false nine for sure. But I'm not again sure that he's going to be able to lift us to the level that we need to go and win a title. And then, of course, you've got Balogun, who, let's be fair, is going to be a risk, whatever. He's unproven in an Arsenal shirt. He's unproven in the Premier League. And to be fair, he's probably unproven in England because his loan spell in the Championship was a pretty poor one. He went over to France and he scored some seriously good goals. I was really, really impressed with his season just gone. And maybe he deserves a break now. Maybe he deserves an opportunity. I just don't see that it's going to be at Arsenal in the first team here. I really don't. He's not really been used. He's been training on his own, and it looks like he could be in for a move. So I wanted to talk about what could happen here this window with the two strikers that we're talking about here. There's no rumours of Jesus or Trossard leaving, but there has been murmurings of Crystal Palace being linked with Eddie Nketiah today, and also the future being in doubt of Balogun. So this is reported today from Crystal Palace sources, the Eagles Beak, and also we've got another Crystal Palace account there saying that Crystal Palace have identified Eddie Nketiah as their number one target to lead the line. Any move for Nketiah will rely on the outgoing of Mateta, which will aid the facilitating of the deal financially. £40 million, I think, was the rumours after speaking to Rich, Crystal Palace fan. He was saying 40 million. Really? 40 million for Eddie Nketiah? I'll drive him there myself if that's the case. I'm so shocked that that's even being tipped. I thought it would be half that, if I'm honest. I thought we'd be lucky to get half of that. If that is serious, goodbye. See you later. That for me is absolute madness. And Rich is in the chat here. Make sure you go over and follow Rich at Eagle Eyed Football. He was going to jump on, but he's in Mallorca, bless him. So I didn't want to ruin his holiday. And I didn't think his Wi-Fi was going to hold up anyway. Listen, I don't think Crystal Palace have got £40 million to be spending on Eddie Nketiah. But listen, if that's the rumour, wow, I'll take it, man. I'll tell you this now. It's absolutely crazy. Ghana CK is saying I'd take 20 for him. Yeah, so would I. And Rich is saying we definitely do not have the money. And PG is also saying Palace don't have that sort of money. They might have soon. I don't know what's happening with your player sales. There's rumours of Michael Elise leaving Palace. There's rumours of Nketiah leaving Palace for fair money, to be fair. Nketiah, there were rumours to be mad money from what I'm hearing. Mark Gare, he tipped with a move away for a lot of money. Michael Elise, not sure if there's a release clause. Pat Rich and the guys in the chat can tell me if that's true about the £35 million release clause. Listen, if you want to do a swap deal, I'm more than happy because for me, I love Eze, I love Elise, and I like Mark Guehi, even though we don't really need a centre half now. So for me, there's definitely some movement we can do there, in my opinion. If this is a serious rumor, like this is it's not a heavy rumor. This is just a link. So for me, we have to see it. RF says free up the number 14 for Mbappe. Jokes, mate. Do you know what? Let's just dream for a minute, shall we? Let's just dream for a minute. It would be amazing. A lot of people are talking about 40 million being a crazy price. I have to admit, I'd love it, but that is a mad price for Eddie Nketiah. Absolutely mad price. I don't know where this 40 million price tag has come from. Perhaps someone in the chat could let me know. But I would be amazed if Palace have got 40 million and they're going to spend it on Eddie Nketiah. Absolute madness for me. 40 million for Balogun, I think, would be a better option for them. I know that Eddie's done it in the Premier League, Balogun hasn't, but I think the ceiling's higher for Balogun. I think he's more of an all-round striker. He's got more of a presence. He's stronger. He looks a lot more clinical in front of goal. Eddie can be wasteful. So let's see what happens, man. Rich has put in the chat that the Elise release clause is not true. The Corey interest has died with Liverpool now chasing Lavia, which is fair. And Guehi and Anderson have gone quiet, but expecting one of them to leave. Wow. I think Liverpool could be all over Guehi. I think he'd be a perfect signing for them. But I can imagine if Ben White goes for 50 million to Arsenal, you're going to be asking that for Guehi. Let's be real. Decore, I'm not sure I rate the player. I quite like him. He's all right. But I don't look at him and go, yeah, Liverpool get him and they're back. I think Lavia's got a higher ceiling personally, but I really like Elise. I think Elise and Eze, wow. Palace, they've got to be keeping hold of some of these players, haven't they? Otherwise, they're going to have a poor season, it seems, man. Let's talk about Balogun because, of course, his future is up in the air. This has come out from Mail Sports saying that the Arsenal forward trains alone at the Gunners' pre-season base, and Inter Milan are lining up a 35 million bid for the USA forward. Now, call me silly, call me stupid if you wish. Is that enough? Now, people might go, of course it's a lot of money. He hasn't proved himself. We've just been speaking about Eddie Nketiah and a link of 40 million. Balogun, surely we could be looking to closer to 50 million. Now, I was just listening to Dharmesh Chef on Sky Sports News at the 5 p.m. news, and he was saying that Arsenal were looking to get close to 50 million for Balogun. Now, Inter Milan, I believe, are sniffing around him for 35, and there's other clubs that are apparently interested in England. But would a club in England pay 50 million for Balogun? I mean, Conor Gallagher is being tipped at 50. If Havertz goes for 65 and Mount goes for 60, maybe 50 for a striker who's just scored 20 to 25 goals in France is around about right. But both of these players haven't really done it in an Arsenal shirt. So it would be fair to say that some of the neutrals would think Eddie Nketiah is about 20 million tops. Balogun, probably 25, 30 tops because of what he's just done in France, but no more than that. And I don't think us Gooners can sit there and go, what? I think what we can do is say, look at the market now and go, yeah, we should be getting more than that. But if you look at how much they're actually valued at, it wouldn't be more than that. Let's be fair. So I do have problems with the lack of quality at Arsenal in the front areas in terms of strength and depth. I love Saka, I love Martinelli, I love Smith Rowe, I love Trossard, I love Gabriel Jesus. But is Nelson, Eddie, and Balogun the backups we need? Not for me. Not for me. It could be harsh on Balogun. I think Reece Nelson and Eddie Nketiah give 110%. Whether that's enough to win us a title, I have concerns and question marks over. But when it comes to who comes in, I'm scratching my head, guys. I'm scratching my head for a couple of reasons. Because if Eddie Nketiah and Balogun were to leave Arsenal, we'd have some money. We're talking there about rumours of between 60 to 80 million potentially, right? If we're that lucky to get the tops for both of them. I think we're more likely if we was to sell both of them, and I still don't think we will. I think we'll only get rid of one of them, and I think that would be Balogun. I think we're likely to get around 30 to 35 for him. And if Eddie was to go, I imagine that Eddie will probably get us between 20 and 25 tops. So we're looking at around about, 50 to 60 million, really, aren't we? That would get us a centre forward, but who would it get? Who would it get? Now, we've got some options. Ramos from Benfica is a name that's been mentioned with a rumour of a move away. Manchester United were linked to him. I think Chelsea might have been as well. Vlahovic is a guy in Juventus who obviously wants to try and find a club. Colin Mawani is another one who apparently Tottenham are going in for if Kane was to leave. And then, of course, you've got the Ivan Toney situation. If I had my way, I'd go for Ivan Toney. I'd go for Ivan Toney, even if it meant him coming in January. and then you use Jesus and Trossard, and then you've got Toney to come in January. That's what I would like to do. Whether that means we pay Brentford crazy money, whether it means we throw in Eddie or Balogun to Brentford and give them 35, 40 million, I don't know what it looks like at the moment with the Ivan Toney situation. If that's not possible, and if Mikel Arteta doesn't want Ivan Toney and he wants a player now, then perhaps we'll have to go for one of the other names that I've mentioned. But what it does to me is it really highlights the lack of number nines at the moment, because everybody wants Osimhen or Kane. But after that, who is there you look at? Are Manchester United really going to believe that Højlund's going to get him close to a title? Because spoiler alert, people, I doubt that he will. I mean, Vlahovic and Ramos could come to the Premier League and flop. Who knows? Colin Muani, likewise, he could do the same. It's going to be really interesting to see what players are doing when they get to this league, but more importantly, what the teams are doing to get the players in and what players they're going for. Could Jackson come to Chelsea and completely bang? Is Nkunku going to fail, or is he going to go and smash it? These are all questions that are up in the air, and the questions would be exactly the same if it was Arsenal going for these players that I've just mentioned as well. So the striker situation, if I had my way, I would go and get one. What do I think Mikel Arteta will do? I don't think we're going to get a striker. I think we're more likely to get a right winger. I think we're much more likely to get a winger and a central midfielder as opposed to a centre forward. I just don't see it happening. I don't think that Mikel Arteta wants to get a striker that can go and fight with Gabriel Jesus. I think he wants to use Eddie and Trossard, and I think Balogun will go. I can't see Eddie and Nketiah leaving. I can see Balogun leaving. I can see Trossard and Jesus fighting it out along with Eddie. And I think that we'll go for a Saka replacement as opposed to somebody to compete with Gabriel Jesus. Now, whether you think that's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, you have your opinions. And I would rather us go for a centre forward after seeing what I saw against Manchester United in pre-season. I felt that we needed more there. There's also rumours that the Kai Havertz position is not moulded in yet. He's not set in stone to be playing in the attacking eight. He can play 10, he can play wide, he can play up top. Well, I need to see that before I believe it, because a lot of people have been saying to me, yes, he can play in a multiple number of positions. Can he? Because I haven't seen him hold down any positions at Chelsea. I've seen him play right wide and he looks poor. I've seen him play left wide, he looks poor. Up top, he hasn't been able to use his attributes in terms of his strength, his presence, or his hold-up play. He's been okay in the air, but I don't look at him and go, wow, he's an absolute threat aerially. I think in terms of our number 8 so far, what I see is that he's struggling. So there's definitely, for me, some issues with what Kai Havertz is going to be about. And I don't see him as a number 9 at Arsenal. He might be used there if we were desperate, but I don't see him as the backup to Gabriel Jesus personally. But that's just me. Do me a favor, people. Get your questions in the chat. We're going to take some of them. Make sure that you put a Q at the start of them so I know that it's a question. If you do want to put a super chat in, then of course we'll get them answered straight away and put them to the top of the queue. Anything you want, it can be about tonight's game, it can be about Arsenal, it can be about transfers, it can be about football in general, whatever you want to ask, please make sure you do that in the chat. While you are doing that, please also do me a favor. I need you to smash the like button. As Richard said in the chat, please make sure you do this, because for me, it's so important for the channel. It really, really is, man. So get your questions in, guys. We're going to take them very, very shortly. If you can do me a favor, I'm not that far off of 11K. We're getting very, very close to it now. Please make sure you help me with that one. I'd absolutely love you to just hit like and subscribe. You don't have to smash it. You just have to caress it, or you can lightly press it if you want. For me, that would mean the world to me. Here we go. Let's take some of your questions. Let's star some of them. While I'm doing that, I wanted to talk quickly about the Declan Rice interview, actually, and also the Kieran Tierney future, because that did come out today. Mikel Arteta has made it quite clear that Kieran Tierney has a future at Arsenal, apparently today in the press conference. He said that he's been learning his position. When spoken to Kieran Tierney, he said that he's been learning off of Zinchenko to how to do the inverted role. I actually do think sometimes I wonder why we're doing that. And maybe that's just me being a bit old-fashioned. But it's okay for Zinchenko to be inverted. But if Ben White and Timber are playing inverted, does Tierney have to be inverted as well? That's all I'll ask. Tomiyasu apparently can play it as well. But Kieran Tierney looked to me as if he was struggling to understand what that all was about last season. And that was why he wasn't getting the nod. Kivior, And the other guys, Zinchenko, Ben White, Timber, Tomiyasu, looks like Arteta favouritises them because they can play that role. But actually, if we was to buy a different profiled striker and have Kieran Tierney, I think that would be an unbelievable opportunity for Arsenal to sling on those two players and then have an opportunity for Tierney to get forward and bomb those crosses in to somebody like Vlahovic. That for me would be an unbelievable different dimension. A couple of substitutes, 75th minute. We need a goal. It's 1-1 against, let's say, West Ham, Brentford. It could be anybody. We're away from home. We're under the cosh. Let's completely change our system. Kieran Tierney comes on for Zinchenko, right? And Jesus takes the bench for Vlahovic, let's say. And now what we have is a threat. And we have Kieran Tierney smashing the balls in, who, let's be fair, is probably one of the best at doing that we have on that left-hand side. And he whips the balls in and it's going towards Vlahovic's head. Even if it's not going towards goal, there's link-up plays, there's flick-ons, he's creating something. That could be an opportunity for me. So I think you need a variation in your fullbacks. You need one that can invert, one that can defend, one that's good going forward, one that's comfortable on the ball. And I think we kind of have a little bit of everything of that. I don't want them all to be doing the same thing. I think they need different attributes because that's what it's about. If you're just baking your subs like for like, there's not much of a point of that, in my opinion. And then, of course, lastly, Declan Rice. A great interview today. I don't know if you've seen it on Sky Sports. It's on YouTube as well. Make sure you check it out, people. It looks like he's loving life. Some interesting things he said. Mikel Arteta was a huge influence to him signing for the Arsenal. He's loved life so far in pre-season. The one player that apparently he's been close to, everybody thought he was going to say Bukayo Saka, but he said Leandro Trossard. Said that he's played against him before, thinks he's top quality, and he's glad he doesn't have to do that again. And he's also said how great he's been as an all-round guy and really helpful to him, helping him settling in, which was amazing to me because he's got some English players there that everyone said he was coming for. It just shows that there's a great connection at the family at the Arsenal. And he did mention that. He said there's like a family. You've got the French lads, the Portuguese lads, the Brazilian lads, and of course the ones that he's close to in the England camp that he knows. And they all gel and get on so well together. And he could not be happier here. And he could not big up Mikel Arteta enough. He said we think that Arsenal are close to major trophies and he hopes this season that we can get them over the line. And he likes what we've done with changing the squad and seeing a future here. So for me, I think it's a really good interview and one that we all want to hear from Declan Rice. Let's go to your questions. Make sure you put them in the chat. More than happy to take them. This one comes in from Mohammed, who says, Dan, don't you think when it comes to a free market, Arsenal are quite poor in that? There are a lot of good free agents that we could have targeted this time. It's not always about paying huge pounds. Yes and no. I think there are some opportunities to do some free transfers. I think there's been opportunities in the past to do free transfers, and we've always managed to get the business done, perhaps with different targets or targets have changed. I'm not so sure that we've not had any targets this time. You know, when the previous windows you've seen, are we going to go for Tielemans and Zaha, let's say, on a free? I don't think we were ever linked heavily enough with those two. I think we were previously when they were coming to the end of their contracts. There was huge reports that Zaha, and I know Zaha's a gooner, and I know that he wanted to come to Arsenal a couple of seasons ago, but that was never going to happen due to the price tag being outpriced. That I think Palace were asking for 70 million at the time. Tielemans, likewise, I think Leicester were asking for around 45 million, but I think they just said that was way too much. So we missed out on them. But I do think we've had our targets this summer. I think Timber and Rice were definitely two of them. And when Havertz become available, he became another one. Big up Mohammed. Wilson in the chat, Wilson in the house. What are you saying, Wilson? I hope you're well. He says, do you think Arsenal need another midfielder and why? Yes, I do. We've only replaced at the moment because Havertz, for me, is not a replacement for Xhaka, but Declan Rice is. So what happens now if Rice or Partey gets injured is we're back to square one. El Neni or Jorginho are coming in. So I do think we need another central midfielder. I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know if we're going to get one, but I would rather get an 8 now than a 6. If Partey goes, we're going to need a 6. If nobody goes and everyone stays, we're going to need an 8. I hope that makes sense, Wilson. If I was to give you names, I'm not going to. I just don't know. I want Caicedo, but it looks like he's going to go Chelsea eventually. Lavia looks like he's going to go Liverpool. He's definitely more of a 6 than an 8. So could Kudus be the guy? Could Kudus be the guy to come in and be that attacking 8? I don't know. Whether he can play there or not, I think he can, from what I've seen. But it looks like Chelsea are heavily linked with him now as well. Let's go to Mohammed again. Mohammed says, Dan, I want to ask you would you rather than signing Havertz, could we have signed Tonali or Soboslai? What's your thoughts, please? I don't think that Soboslai or Tonali were two options for Arsenal, but I do think that with 65 million, if you add 20 million more to that, you could have got Caicedo and you could have had Smith Rowe playing in that attacking role that Havertz is playing now. So as much as I think it's strength in depth getting Havertz, I do think that if it prevents us from getting another player that we could have had like a Caicedo, then potentially it looks like a bad move. So it's a very good question. Mark, pick up yourself. Hope says, it still amazes me that Arteta has spent £65 million on a player that he doesn't know his best position. It does seem worrying, doesn't it? But is he saying that? Does he believe that? Um, does he believe that he doesn't have a clue where Havertz plays? Um, or is it just him playing his cards close to his chest that he has a plan for Havertz? I think he has a plan for Havertz. I just don't know that we've seen it yet. And I hope that we do see it soon because we kind of need to, personally. Let's take a look at this next one. Where are we? This is from Wilson, who says, do you think that Kudus would be a good signing for Arsenal and why? I don't sit here naive enough to claim that I watch the Dutch league every week. What I do say is that this guy had an unbelievably good World Cup, knows Thomas Partey very well from playing in Ghana with him. Ajax has had very, very impressive performances and has a high ceiling. The other thing I like about Kudus, which I think that Edu and Arteta like, is the versatility. I know that he can play wide, he can play attacking eight, he can play up top apparently as well. So again, this is another player that sounds a little bit Havertzy in terms of the positions that he can cover, but actually he's doing it in those positions in that league, and Havertz hasn't done that yet for Chelsea. So this would be a very good signing. There's rumours that Chelsea are interested. They're talking around 40 to 45 million pounds apparently. Chelsea look to be heavily interested in making him one of his midfield three, along with which I believe will be Enzo and Caicedo if they can get that over the line, which, let's be real, is actually a very good midfield for Chelsea. I know they've not got much strength in depth, but that's a very good first 11 in terms of their midfield for sure. Let's take this next one from Chaitanya. Big up, Chaitanya. I hope you're well, bro. I'm just looking at these next two to start. Sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once. Chaitanya, is Timber ready for the Premier League wingers, Dan? Do we need a match-winning striker? A striker that can win us those 1-0 versus City? Free Tony. We've just mentioned Ivan Tony. 100%, bro. Chaitanya, I'd love him. I would. And I said earlier, I'd happily throw Eddie or Balogun now to Brentford. They can have him now, and we'll wait till January to have Tony. I think he's a top talent, man. He's an all-round striker. He's Premier League proven, who scored, 19 Premier League goals last season for Brentford. What can he do in an Arsenal shirt? As for Timber, I haven't seen enough of him yet in pre-season, but I do say, and will say, that he's very comfortable on the ball. Very, very comfortable. So I don't have a problem with that, and I'm actually excited to see Timber. I really am. I do think it will get a lot of people excited. Who is next in the chat? We have got Amir. Hey, Dan, what do you think Rice's position will be? Will it be an 8 or a 6? If Partey stays, it's an 8. Partey will be the 6, Rice will be the 8, and Erdegaard will be attacking as usual. Rice, for me, as an 8, excites me more than it does as a 6. I'll say that. I think Rice has the ability to drive forward like he did for West Ham. And I do think that as a 6, we didn't see that as much. But when we did see it at West Ham, boy, it was impressive. And I think that we've seen something now. I speak to every West Ham fan, and they're like, play him in the 8, he'll be wicked. None of them have said, oh, play him in the 6 instead of Partey, because we've got Thomas Partey there. So for me, I think that is our best midfield. None of this Havertz stuff with Rice and Erdegaard. For me, it has to be Partey, Rice, Erdegaard. And that, for me, is one of the best midfielders in midfield trios in the league, for sure. This one comes in from Jay, who says, do you reckon there's a possibility that we can actually get Vlahovic? He's the only one out of those that I can see that's actually available. Yes, there's an opportunity for us to get him, I think. It depends if we do want to play to pay the wages for him and to pay him at Juventus what they believe is going to cost. Rumours of 77 million. That's very specific. Is that a lot of money? Yes, it is. But unfortunately, that's the market. We're going to have to go and buy a striker for that much money. We're not going to get a centre forward that's any better than Eddie Nketiah or Balogun if we're going to be paying 35 million for one. That's just the way it is. If we're going to be paying 35 million for strikers, you might as well give Balogun a go, in my opinion. Let's go to Wilson, who has said, why on earth are some pundits and others so bitter about Arsenal? It's absolutely ridiculous, Dan. Get used to it, Wilson. Get used to it. They hated us all last season, and I'm sure that they'll hate us all again. Um, This one comes in from Faye, who's saying, with the super chat, big up, Faye. Thank you very much. Says, Sell Eddie, go and get yourself a super striker. Please, I'll take Vlahovic or Kolo Muani. Yes, I would take a centre forward out of those two. That both of them are better than Eddie and Nketiah. Let's be real. So for me, that's what I want to see, an upgrade on Eddie. I like what Eddie does in parts of the game. I like his energy, but really we need goals and we need that intensity plus the back of the net. So let's see what we can do there. Let's go to the next question, which is going to come in from Dempsec. Why not, as a plan B, push Havertz up to the 9, he says, and have KT pinging in crosses to him? Funny enough, I was just mentioning that. I don't know if you were joining on the stream previously when I was talking about Kieran Tierney whipping balls into a centre forward with aerial ability. And Kai Havertz does have aerial ability. My problem with Kai is I haven't seen enough of him in a Chelsea shirt to see that he's a good enough number 9, if I'm honest with you. But it would be an option for sure to use Kieran Tierney and Havertz together. I agree with what you're saying there, Demsek, for sure. Mark, big up Mark, says, do you think that Ollie Watkins would be a good replacement for Eddie and Balogun? I like Ollie Watkins a lot. I think he's a really good centre forward. I think he's a Premier League centre forward that has a lot of pace, power and drive. Sometimes he's a bit wasteful, but I think that if you're asking me, do I want him instead of Eddie and Balogun, I'd say yes. Do I want him as my number 1 striker option for this summer? I would say no. And I don't think Aston Villa would sell him, actually. I know he'd probably want to come to Arsenal because he's a gooner, but I think it would take a lot more than he's worth because Villa kind of haven't got a striker and need him. So that's what I think for that one, Mark. Vesper says, what do you expect from the boys against Barca tonight? A win or just a good performance? How about both? How about a win and a good performance? I'd love to see Arsenal's strongest 11 tonight. And I'd love to see us going all out against Barcelona. If Zinchenko isn't fit enough, then I'd like to see Kieran Tierney given the chance. Ramsdale in goal. I'd like to see Ben White, Saliba, Gabriel, Tierney. I'd like to see Partey, Rice and Erdegaard. And I'd like to see Saka, Martinelli and Jesus. That would be what I'd like to see tonight. Doesn't matter if it doesn't end that way. Of course, players are going to get minutes. But I'd like to see that to see what it looks like now. We've already got a couple of weeks left until the season kicks off, believe it or not. Friday the 11th of August, Burnley versus City. That's not long, people. We've only got a few days left of July. So we're literally a couple of weeks away now before that kicks in. So I need to see this team bonding together. So that's what I expect tonight. Always expect to win because it's Arsenal. Always expect a good performance because it's Arsenal. And tonight, I think that we should be able to get that as long as we play the bright setup. RF says, what about João Felix? Would anyone take him in attack, even on a loan? Again, wouldn't be my first choice. I saw him at Chelsea and wasn't too impressed. I like him, but I do think we need a different type of profile. I believe Felix would be very similar to Jesus. Just my opinion. A lot of people like him, though, and we could do a lot worse, to be fair. This one comes in from Stu. If we sell Eddie, Balogun, Holding, Pepe, Cedric, Lokonga and El Neni, it would be easy to buy Kudus or Elise and buy a quality striker. Do you think that we would have enough to challenge again? We're definitely going to see outgoings for sure. I think that out of those players there, I think Balogun will go, Holding will go, Pepe will go, Cedric, Lokonga, Tavares, I think will all go. I don't think El Neni will. I think Patino looks like he's going to go as well with a buyback clause. We've got some money there to play with to get ourselves forward, whether that's Kudus, like you say, Elise, or both. I do think that there's potential if we was to make this a 9 or 10 out of 10 out of 10 window to go and get a centre midfielder, a right winger, and a centre forward. That's what I think we need left, if I'm honest with you, if we're going to compete. So let's see what we do. This one comes in from Jay, who says, what do you think of Kolo Muani? He can cover on the right as well as players a striker confidently. I like him a lot, man. I like him a lot. And I think that he would be a good player. Whether or not Mikel Arteta rates him, I don't know. I haven't seen enough of him to go, wow. In the World Cup, I thought he looked very good for France. And I think he's a player that a lot of teams are looking at. And as I said earlier on the stream, if Harry Kane goes, apparently Tottenham want him as the number 1 target. So obviously there's more teams looking at him. This one comes in from Toby. He says, do you think that Havertz will start for us in the midfield and Partey being benched? In some of the preseason friendlies, we're going to see that because we're going to see experimenting. We're going to see how he's going to use our midfield trio. but absolutely no chance is Partey getting dropped for Havertz. No chance for me. If he's playing Rice, Havertz, and Ødegaard ahead of Partey, I'm going to have concerns going into the season, guys. And people might say that's a meltdown, it's out of order, blah blah blah. But I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Like, I do not feel like that is the right way to go. I really do not think that's the right way to go. I'm going to star some of the last questions. We've got 7 left. Here we go. This one's from Ross. He says, Dan, who's going to put Eddie on 100k a week? We'll be having the same conversation about Nelson next season, unfortunately. This is a really interesting question, Ross, because a lot of people said this is great business putting Eddie and Nelson on contracts because now we can sell them. The problem you've got with that, as much as I agree it's great they're not going for free, who's going to give them 100k a week plus now? Who actually is going to sit there and go, right, Brentford are going to buy Eddie and Nketiah, Palace are going to buy Eddie and Nketiah, Brighton want Balogun, let's say. They want 150 million, 150k, don't they? Or at least 100k. Have those teams got that money? That's going to be tough, man. That's going to be tough. I'm not being disrespectful, but those clubs, they've not all on 100k a week like some of the big clubs are. So I think you have to be very, very careful with that one, Ross. I really do. So fair play to you, man. That's a good question. Mr. Waffle, if Partey leaves, we have to sign Caicedo. I want Caicedo even if Partey stays. For me, I think the kid is absolutely sick. He's one of my favourite players, young players in the Premier League. I think that he's got everything that a midfielder needs. And when I heard the rumours of Rice and Caicedo, I was really excited. We've managed to get Rice. Wouldn't it be amazing to go and get Caicedo as well? Why is that deal stalling? What is holding that up? Chelsea have the money. Chelsea can afford him. Does Caicedo want to go, or is he waiting for another club? We're going to find out, aren't we, coming soon? Let's take this one from Fiseo, who says, would you take Lukaku for 20 million euros? I would not take Lukaku. I'm sorry. I think his time's done. I look at his performances and think he's a bit of a bum at times. I do think that Lukaku has had an unbelievable time as a footballer in the teams that he's played for. He's scored great goals. He's been a part of great things. Inter Milan, Chelsea, obviously Manchester United as well. But I don't think he's good enough, man. I don't think he's good enough. And it's not a striker that I'd be looking at going, yes, get him in the door. I really don't think that's a great option for me. So that's not one that I would go with. This comes in for need a new goalkeeper ASAP. This is interesting for me. This is really interesting for me. We're not going to get one. Matt Turner hasn't put much wrong in the games I've seen him in the World Cup for USA and in the games that he came in the Europa League. But I do look at some and think, are you ready? You've made a couple of howlers in pre-seasons before last season, pre-season. I looked at him and I thought, don't think much of him. Then he came in the Europa League, made a couple errors, don't think much of him. Then he had a good World Cup. And since he's been in Arsenal's first team since that point, I can't think of any absolute howlers, if I'm honest with you, to make me think that Arteta wants to replace him. Remember when we signed Runnison and straight away you could see he just wasn't good enough. I don't think we've got there yet. So I don't think we're going to be looking at that as a position of priority. Carrington says, Dan, if we play the same lineup we had most of last season, only replacing Xhaka with Rice, assuming we don't have too many injuries, where do we finish? If it was about first tier 11s, we'd have a great chance of winning the league. But it's about squad depth, my friend. And unfortunately, bro, we haven't got that at the moment in a couple of positions. I think we're absolutely sorted at the back. But in midfield and up top, I still feel we're short. Only by 2 or 3 players, not by 5 or 6 like some players have got. I do think that we're looking at Manchester City's squad and our squad right now, and we're thinking, how can we improve it? Manchester City have lost a couple of players. They've bought a couple of players. Looks like Vardy's coming in. That's an upgrade on Laporte. Looks like Kyle Walker's going out. They'll get another player in. Looks like they're going to lose Bernardo Silva and Mahrez, potentially both. Gundogan's gone. Kovacic has come in. They're linked with Elise and some of the other players. So Pep's always made it work so far. I don't think there's any football fan that can sit there, put their hand on heart, put a load of money on it and say, Man City ain't winning this league this season. 6 in the last 7, I think they've won, have they? It's absolutely mad. So let's see what happens there. This one comes in from Mohammed. It says, Dan, realistically, how many more signings do you expect from Arsenal? I would love to. What about yourself? There's rumours that we're going to sign Bitello, 23-year-old from the Brazilian league, can play in a number of positions in the midfield and attacking. I think Edu wants this one a little bit like the Marquinhos one. I don't think this guy's coming in to start and compete with Granit Xhaka. He's gone with Declan Rice and with Merton Odegaard, but I could be wrong. I don't know what this guy's about. I've not seen enough of him at Gremio to understand where we're going with that one. I do think that there's potential for him to come in and be a part of the mix, but I'm not so sure we're going to get much from that one. I think we'll get two more in. I think we will get a centre midfielder, and I think we will get a right forward. I don't think we're going to get a striker. I think we're going to lose Balogun, and that money plus the Tavares, Lokonga, Pepe, Holding, all them money that we get from all them, I think we'll fund a centre midfielder, and Balogun, the money we get from him, will fund a right forward of some kind. Who are they going to be? No idea. Maybe we need an 8, and we're looking at Kudus for that. And maybe we're looking at a winger and we're going for Elise for £35 million release clause, if that's the case. A lot of people, I think Rich earlier was saying that isn't the case and that there isn't a release clause now. But maybe they're the two we're looking at. Who knows? I think Mikel Arteta knows we ain't done yet. But we're going to see outgoings, in my opinion, before we see these guys coming in. It's going to be interesting for me to see where Arsenal are at with pre-season first, because it hasn't been a very good one. You know, we've drew 1-1 behind closed doors at Watford, 1-1 with Nuremberg. We lost to Manchester United. And we've got Barcelona and Monaco to go before we play in the Community Shield. So we need a couple of wins to give us some momentum, because last season's pre-season, we looked very good. And we went into the first 5 games of the Premier League season and we won all 5. So that's what I need to be seeing again. I need to be seeing that amount of momentum and consistency for me. So let's see where we're at. Predictions for tonight. Some people have asked me. I am going to go for an Arsenal win. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Arsenal win tonight. I feel that we will have a point to prove due to losing in the last game and not really performing to our best so far in pre-season. It's time for that to change. It's time for us to look like we're going to be moving forward with that. And I'm going to say this. I think we will 100% get the result tonight. There we go. I've said it. I'm confident. Quietly confident, though, I would say. Guys, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I need you to do me a real big favor. As you are leaving the stream, please hit the like button. It would mean the world to me if you could do that as you leave. I don't know what we're on at the moment. Have we hit over 100 likes? No, we're not even hit 100 likes, people. Come on, we can get that done. We're only in the late 90s, and there's 400 of you watching nearly. So make sure you do me a favor and smash that like button. If you can subscribe to the channel, that would be amazing too. We're trying to get to 11k as quickly as possible. We hit 10k not long ago, so I want to try and get that moving as well. So please make sure that you're subscribed, and please keep tuned. We're going to be doing a little bit more coverage on Arsenal, but every single day, as you know and have been following, we're going to be looking at Transfer Daily, where I get a lot of guys on every night to talk and discuss the things that are happening, and do a little bit of debate. We've got some debate shows planned as well. We've got some combined 11 shows planned with all the guys and the guests and the influencers from this channel as well. So please make sure, if you're new to the channel, that you're subscribing, because there's going to be a lot of content, and trust me, you'll know everybody that comes on, because you're probably following all their channels as well. So it's great stuff. Make sure that you do me a favor and smash the like on the way out. Subscribe if you're new. Up the Arsenal. We'll see you next time. Take it easy. Come on, you Gunners.